live. There we go. Hey, how's it going? It is your muscle building and fitness coach, Lee Hayward, with the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Live Q&A. Today is a little different, as you may notice. I'm not in my office or not in my home gym. I'm in the car right now. And the reason for that is because my son Harvey is doing music lessons today. They had a change in schedule because this week we had Thanksgiving here in Canada, and he normally has his lesson, which was on the Thanksgiving holiday. So today they're making up for the lesson and they're having it on the Friday. And ironically, it's the exact same time that I normally go live at 5 with the Total Fitness Bodybuilding live stream Q&A. But I said, you know what? I'm going to make it work nonetheless. So I'm doing this on my phone. Harvey's in the music lesson, and we're going to make this work. So welcome to our chat. I know it is a little bit dark here. I don't know if I can play around with the light a little bit. I'm not sure if that makes any difference. Not really, not much. But bottom line, I can still, we can still have our conversation here, still do our live Q&A. And if you have any questions or topics of discussion that you would like to discuss related to fitness and nutrition, health and wellness, any specific challenges you may be dealing with when it comes to your workouts, building muscle, losing fat, anything along those lines, feel free to type those questions and topics of discussion into our chat window, and I'll do the best that I can to help you out over the course of our video chat today. All right. So this is a little different than our normal chat. So again, I usually do this on my computer. It's bigger. I use a different streaming platform, and I actually stream simultaneously through YouTube and the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Facebook page. When I'm doing it on the phone, I can only choose one or the other. So we're doing it on YouTube. Those of you who normally watch through Facebook, well, you're not watching through Facebook today because it's only streaming through YouTube. All right. And as you're popping onto our live chat here now, please let me know that you are coming through. I see, I won't be able to show the comments and stuff because it's different again on the phone versus on the computer, but I see we have Lee Dunnigan joining in. We've got Robert joining in. We've got, I believe it's Arthur joining in, is it? It's so small on the screen, I can't see. But anyway, all right, and I get some questions coming through. Robert's asking, where am I at? I'm in the car. I'm in the parking lot outside of School of Rock, which is where Harvey is doing music lessons today. And I mentioned that at the start of the chat when I went live. Because we had Thanksgiving this week here in Canada, his music lesson that would normally take place on Monday was canceled. So they're doing a makeup lesson here today on Friday. So he's in doing music lessons. I'm out here in the car doing a live stream video Q&A. We're making it work, right? And that's not perfect, but it's good enough, right? Good enough and good enough consistently. That's one of my mottos. And sometimes you got to apply that same strategy to your fitness, right? Things go, things change, schedules change, things like that. So, I mean, you might not have the ideal workout schedule, or things might get postponed or delayed or changed around. Does it mean you have to scrap it and throw it out the window? No, you make the best of the situation. So that's exactly what I'm doing here today. I'm making the best of the situation by doing a live stream Q&A in the car on my phone. All right. There we go. All right. And Lee is saying it is coming through loud and clear. Appreciate that. Glad it is. Again, when you're streaming through the phone, you never know. All right. So as you're popping onto our live stream here today, if you have any questions or topics of discussion or anything that you would like to cover related to health and fitness, any specific questions or challenges related to your workouts, building muscle, losing fat, and to your nutrition, feel free to type those questions into the chat window there, and I'll do the best that I can to help you out over the course of our chat today. And if you're brand new to the Total Fitness Bodybuilding video chat, welcome. Always nice to have new people joining in. All right, let's see. We have one question there coming through saying, I love this. All right. Well, he's calling it the podcast. Woohoo. This is technically not the podcast. I have a separate podcast that I do, which are usually pre-recorded and usually focus on specific topics. But again, I appreciate the comment coming through there from, who's that again? Kyran. All right. Again, I'm not used to reading stuff, little tiny miniature text on the phone. I'm used to reading stuff on a big computer monitor screen. And I'm one of these old people now where I got glasses, but when I try to look up close, I got to lift the glasses up. I don't know. What does that make you? Does that make you nearsighted, farsighted, or I don't know? At a certain range, I can see just fine, but if I'm a little closer, I can't see. If I'm a little too further away, I can't see. Right? And I'm getting more gray hair to boot. So anyway, the joys of growing old. But anyway, thanks for the comment there, my friend. Glad you enjoy the podcast, and hopefully you enjoy these live stream video Q&As as well. All right, who else we got? What else? One question that came through here. This is from Conscious Aether, I believe his name is, saying, have you ever practiced martial arts? Yes, I have done martial arts. In fact, that was my first real intro to fitness. I guess organized fitness. Wasn't even bodybuilding or working out. It was doing martial arts. And I started that back when I was 7 years old. I started first doing martial arts, and I did it with my dad. And the motivation for that came from getting picked on and bullied in school. Because when I was younger, we moved to a new city, moved to a new school, and when I was the new kid at the new school and everything else, kind of being that loner, if you will, a lot of the other schoolyard bullies there, they could sense that I was awkward, out of my comfort zone, and they took advantage of that and picked on me and bullied me and just gave me a hard time in elementary school. And that was one of my motivations. I said, you know what, I want to do something to be able to stand up to the bullies. So that was one of my early motivations to join martial arts. And my dad joined with me, so we both started and did that for several years. And I basically continued on with martial arts throughout junior high and high school. And how I got involved with bodybuilding was my martial arts instructor, or I had a few different instructors, over the years, but one of the later instructors that I had also worked out with weights. He had a basement home gym. He worked out with weights. He was not a competitor, but he was the biggest and strongest guy that I knew at the time. And you got to remember, this is back in late 80s, early 90s. Like, there was no internet. There wasn't oodles of information coming at you. I've never ever been to a public gym before, so the fact that I knew someone in my own personal life who actually lifted weights and worked out and was pretty darn strong. I mean, I remember back then he was, he could bench like 300 pounds, which I thought was like mind-boggling at the time. He worked out, and he encouraged me to work out. So I started, working out with my martial arts instructor. Like, there was a bunch of us, some of the students from the dojo used to go there on the weekends, and we would weight train with him in addition to the martial arts classes during the week. So that's where I kind of got more interested in weight training, and he could tell I was taking more of a liking to weight training over the martial arts, because he could just tell where the passion was, where the focus was. And he said, Lee, do what you want to do. Like, don't kind of go chasing two rabbits. Like, if you want to focus on bodybuilding and strength training, and that's your main focus, he said, do that. He said, rather than kind of like watering yourself down, like going half-ass with the martial arts and half-ass with the weight training, do what you want to do. And I decided, what, I want to give this bodybuilding thing a try. So after that, I decided to go all in. I competed in my first bodybuilding show. I was 17 years old, still a senior in high school at the time. And I guess the rest is history from there. I mean, that's what led me down the road in the bodybuilding world. But it started off doing martial arts. That was my first fitness passion, if you will. And I've dabbled with other martial arts since then. Like, I know back in the early 2000s, when the UFC was becoming really popular, I did some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, did that for a while. Did some boxing and MMA classes as well, because I was, just caught up with the hype of the UFC and stuff, and there was several clubs started up in our local area, so I did that for a while. I enjoyed it, but I was getting a lot of nagging injuries from jiu-jitsu, like, getting in submissions and like, oh man, now my shoulders, hurt because, someone got me in a Kimura, or someone got me in an arm bar, or different things like that. And I was always having these nagging aches and pains and tendonitis flare-ups just from the submissions. And then after several months of it, I was just like, what am I doing this for? Right? I mean, when you're in the gym working out, at least you're in control of your body and what you do to yourself. But when you're in a martial arts setting and you're sparring, you're at the mercy of whoever you're sparring with, and it's more likely to get injured. Like if I get injured in the gym lifting weights, for the most part, it's my own damn fault, right? Because I either tried too much, pushed beyond my means, or whatever. Now, of course, there's always freak accidents that can happen, but generally speaking, you're in control. When you're sparring in a dojo and stuff like that, yeah, injuries are likely to happen. And I'm not alone with that. Anybody who's done martial arts, I'm sure you probably had your share of injuries. And I know the guys that I used to train with, they all had their share of injuries. And it just finally, I got to the point where it's like, what the hell am I doing this for? Right? I'm not going to be a fighter. I'm not getting in the ring or anything. So I decided, let's just focus on bodybuilding and fitness training. It's safer and easier on the body. So that's where I am at this stage of the game. But again, thanks for asking. I mean, this is a cool question. All right, what else we got there? Who else we got joining in? Let's see. We've got Camo asking, why am I in the car? I know the regulars who've been watching the stream since the start are going to get tired of me saying this. My son Harvey is doing music lessons at the School of Rock, and I'm in the car waiting for him. And the reason for that, normally we don't have music lessons on Friday, and I'm able to stay at home and do my live stream at home. But today, the reason we have a schedule change is because it was Thanksgiving here in Canada on Monday. He normally has lessons on Monday. They switched the schedule around to Friday. So he's in doing music lessons, and I'm making the best of it by doing the live chat here in the car. So that's why I'm in the car. I know I'm probably going to sound like a broken record answering that question over and over, but hey, it's a question. We're going to answer it. Who else we got joining in? I see Raf joining in. Says, Lee, to maintain muscle mass that I have right now, do I have to lift the same weight, or can I just go down 20, 30% of weight? I don't grow bigger. I just want to maintain. All right. First off, I'm going to break that down a bit more, kind of unpack it. There's really no such thing as maintenance. Now, with that being said, like, you can dial it up or dial it back depending on your situation, your circumstances. Like, let's just say you're going through a busy time in your life, whatever you got going on, and you don't have as much time to commit to going to the gym, or it's just not as big of a priority now, and you have other things that you want to focus on. It's okay to dial back your workouts, right? That's fine. But trying to think of maintenance, that's really not how it works. Like, we're either slowly making progress forward or we're slowly regressing backwards. So with your training, I still want you to focus on making progress. But if you need to dial things back, I would probably dial back the volume or the frequency, but I wouldn't necessarily dial back the intensity. Like, try to still keep that intensity there. And even if you can maintain 2 good workouts a week in the gym, you can still make progress. I mean, it's not going to be the same as if you're more consistent and training, say, like 3 or 4, however many days a week. But if you can get 2 good sessions a week and probably focus on like total body workouts, hitting big compound exercises, and still trying to strive to train in a progressive overload fashion, you'll be able to maintain or even make small gains in strength and size. Like, that's the best way to go about it. Just kind of dial back the volume and dial back the frequency a little bit. That's what I would recommend, not necessarily dialing back the weights. Unless, of course, like, you're injured or something like that. I mean, you need to go through like recovery phase or something. I mean, if you want to kind of unpack it and share why you want to switch to maintenance, I might be able to give you a more detailed answer. But generally speaking, if you start lifting lighter weights, you're going to lose the strength and the fitness accordingly. Right now, you still want to kind of keep it up. Now, with that being said, there's times when you need to do a deload. Like, hey, maybe you've been pushing yourself and you're getting to the point like you're borderline overtraining, and you say, well, you know what, I'm just going to back the weights off a little bit, kind of do like active recovery deload phase, and then gradually build them back up again. That's a different scenario. But if you're thinking like long term, saying like, okay, I'm as good as I want to be right now, I'm just going to hold on to what I have. If you start easing up the intensity, lightening up the weights and everything else, you're slowly going to regress. You're not going to maintain. But you can maintain with less frequency, as long as you keep the intensity up, right? The intensity is the big thing that you need to focus on, right? Like, and of course, lifting within your means with proper form and all that stuff. I'm not saying lift heavy for the sake of just moving weight, but don't purposely lighten up the weight unless you need to for injury or rehab purposes or something along those lines. But yeah, that's a great question, and it's something that we really do a lot of, like within our whole coaching program, is focusing on like how do we dial it up when we want to make more aggressive progress, and then how can we scale it back when we need to focus on other areas of life. Like maybe you're traveling, or you've got family situations, or like over the holidays or something like that, and it's like I can't focus 100% on training like I can when I'm in a normal regular routine, but I still want to make progress. How do we dial it back, in those situations? And then how can you dial it up when you want to be more aggressive with your progress? And it's an individual thing. I mean, there's not like a one size fits all answer to that, but there's a lot of different strategies that you can incorporate. Right. All right, what else we got there? We have, excuse me, guys, I got to open up my eyes here again. Jason Harris, I think it is. All right. Sorry, my text on my phone, I don't know if there's a way to make that bigger, but it's like microscopic here. And for my old man eyes in the dark, it's not helping. Do you recommend taking creatine for faster recovery? I find myself being sore for longer. Creatine is one of those supplements. Honestly, I think everybody should be taking it, unless you have some pre-existing health issues where you shouldn't take creatine, and your doctor or healthcare professional will probably tell you about that, and you would probably know about it. Like if you have some pre-existing kidney or digestive issues or whatever, where you need to be on a restrictive diet. But assuming that your body is functioning normally and you're able to eat a well-balanced diet with no issues, I recommend creatine for pretty much everybody, not just from an athletic point of view, but from an overall health point of view. And there's a lot of fitness experts and health and wellness experts these days recommending creatine as an overall health and longevity supplement, not just a bodybuilding / athletic performance supplement. Because creatine, what it does is it helps to pull water and nutrients into the cell. So it creates that cell volumization. And a hydrated cell is a healthy cell, right? If a dehydrated cell is not the ideal scenario, that's not a healthy cell. But if you can pull water and nutrients into the cell, that's a more favorable environment for optimal health and just optimal cell functioning. And it's also good for brain health. I mean, it's been shown to have positive impacts for mental and cognitive health, even in helping people with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and mental degenerative diseases. It's been shown to help in that area, help boost cognitive performance. So there's a lot of benefits to creatine that go beyond just bench pressing more weight in the gym, or running your 100-meter dash as fast as possible. Like there's more to it than just athletic performance. But it does certainly help with athletic performance as well. Now, it's not a miracle supplement. Like, it's not like, hey, you're going to take creatine and now all of a sudden you're going to be like, world champion, you're like 0 to hero. But it will provide a marginal gain over not taking creatine, right? It does have noticeable improvements in that sense. I personally use creatine. I have been since I started taking creatine back in 1995. And, there's been some times where I've been on and off over the years, but over the last, I've been taking it steadily over the last 7 years. Like since I turned 40, I've been taking creatine daily, and it's just part of my regular routine. So like I take it when I have my morning vitamins after breakfast, I'd have creatine along with that, and it's just a staple in my day, right? It's something I take consistently. And it's just one of those things that'll help with overall health and wellness, as well as helping to boost your athletic performance. And if you've never taken it before, then that's when you usually get the most bang for your buck from creatine. Especially if you haven't, the people who get the most bang for their buck from creatine are those who haven't really prioritized supplementation, and those who haven't really prioritized like a high protein bodybuilding style diet plan. And so if you're regularly eating a gram of protein per pound of body weight per day, and you're taking other supplements, like you're taking amino acids or protein powders and things like that, you're probably not going to notice as big of a boost from creatine as someone who isn't eating a gram of protein per pound of body weight per day, or isn't taking other supplements and stuff like that. Like, that's when those people tend to find the biggest boost. Vegetarians is a prime example, because vegetarians typically have very low levels of creatine, and when they start supplementing with it, they notice a big jump, right, in terms of strength and athletic performance. I know when I first started taking it, I could notice a difference, like muscle fullness, strength, just being able to get an extra rep, or just having that extra bit of oomph when you're in the gym. It's quite noticeable, right? So, I mean, I've been using it now, like I said, since the mid-90s when it first became mainstream, and I'm still using it today. And I recommend it to everybody, unless, of course, you have some pre-existing health issue where you have to be on a special diet and your doctor suggests not to use it. But most doctors today, especially the ones who are in the know, are recommending it as an overall health and wellness supplement, and a longevity supplement at that. Let's see what else we got there. It's already dark. Wow. Yes, it is. And the days are getting shorter. The nights are getting longer. And yeah, so it's dark, right? I don't like it, but it is, I don't have much control over it. Let's see what else we got there. Which is better for mass building, squats or deadlifts? Both. I mean, they're very similar exercises in terms of the muscle and hypertrophy that you're going to build. Squats, it primarily works the legs, and then it also secondarily works the back. You're going to get the spinal erectors, the traps, all the muscles throughout your back, your body, your hips, your hamstrings, your glutes, your quads. Like, all that comes into play when you squat. When you look at a deadlift, it's pretty much the same. It's just there's a little bit more back emphasis and a little less leg emphasis, but they're very similar exercises. And a lot of times when you see like powerlifters and strength athletes train, they often combine squat and deadlift into the same workout because they're so complementary. They're working the same muscles. So, like, let's pair them together so that we can maximize the recovery for those muscles, versus having like a squat day and then a deadlift day, which there's a lot of overlap. They usually combine them together. And in a lot of sports, like powerlifting, prime example, you do squats and deadlifts in the same session. When you're on the platform lifting in a meet, you're doing squat, bench, deadlift all in the same session. So a lot of times people will train them and pair them up together. So as far as effectiveness, mass building, whatever, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. They're both complementary exercises. And generally speaking, as you get stronger in one, you'll probably see it carry over into the other. So, like, as you build up a bigger squat, you're probably also going to see some carry over to your deadlift. As you build up a bigger deadlift, you're probably going to see some carry over to your squat, right? They're very complementary to one another. So it's not a case of either or, better or worse. It's both in this case. Another question coming through there saying, what are your thoughts on HIIT training? I've heard a trainer say once that traditional steady state cardio sucks because there's no afterburn effect. All right. So we're referring to from a cardio point of view. This is a pet peeve of mine, is all forms of training have their benefits, right? It's not right, wrong, good, or bad. It depends on the athlete, the situation, what it is they're training for. And when you look at cardio alone, like, let's just say you're an endurance athlete and you're just doing cardio. So you're not lifting weights in the gym, you're not doing body weight exercises or other strength training, you're just doing cardio. Like, you're a runner, you're a cyclist, and you're a very narrow-minded one, and you're just focusing on your specific sport. You're not doing any sort of cross-training or complementary training. In that situation, if you just did low-intensity, steady-state cardio, you're going to be at a disadvantage because you're only working one energy system over and over again, right? In that situation, if you were just to do cardio and cardio alone, it's good to incorporate some days where you're doing that low intensity, long duration cardio to build the base. And then there's other days when you want to be doing some higher intensity sessions there to work on increasing your peak power output, increasing your VO2 max, and things like that. And then various types of interval training. Like there's all kinds of different structures and schedules within cardio training, right? It's not just low intensity, easy, high intensity, balls to the wall. Like there's a lot of different effort levels that you can go in there, and anyone like who's a seasoned endurance athlete will be able to tell you, like, okay, hey, this is my, say, like, this is my personal best in a 100-yard sprint, and here's my personal best in my 1 mile time, or my 5K time, or my 10K time, or my half marathon time, or my full marathon time. Like, they'll have all these different benchmarks, and each one works different energy systems, requires a different mental and a physical approach to the training, and they can all indirectly complement one another. So it depends on the situation. Now, from a practical point of view, for most people who are in the gym lifting weights and you're doing cardio, I'm more of a fan, from a fat burning point of view, of primarily focusing on the low intensity, steady state cardio, because you're going to be getting a lot of high intensity training through the weight training itself. Like, that's where you're going to be pushing the limit, pushing the intensity. That's where you're going to get the quote unquote afterburn effect, which it's not that big regardless. Like, a lot of people, years ago, there was a big push in the whole fitness world, and especially in the social media world, where people were trying to sell the sizzle on their fitness programs, and they're saying, well, my program is better than this program because, hey, we incorporate high intensity training and you'll get the afterburn effect. Like, the afterburn effect, you might get an extra 10% bump on top of what you normally burn, right? Which it might sound like a lot, but it's not. Like, if you did, let's just say you did a half-hour cardio and you burn 300 calories. Okay, you get an extra 10% bump. You'd burn 330 calories. Big freaking deal. Like, it's not as big of a bump as a lot of people think. If you're doing cardio and your goal is, oh, I'm going to get the afterburn effect so that I get ripped and shredded, it ain't going to happen. Like, you got to tighten up the diet regardless of what type of exercise you're doing. You can't out-train a poor diet, even if you incorporate afterburn. It's not that big of a deal. And if you're looking from a total calorie burn perspective, longer duration, lower intensity can burn a lot more total calories because you can sustain it a lot longer. Like, prime example, like, how long could you go running at high intensity? Probably not that long. How long could you walk at a brisk pace, i.e. low intensity? You could probably do that for an hour, 2 hours. I mean, if you really had to, you could do it for multiple hours. Like, people go off on, like, day-long hiking trips, for example. Like, lower intensity cardio, you can literally do it for hours on end. And when you can do something longer, you're going to burn way more calories than something that you just do for a short duration at a high intensity. Granted, in that unit of time, sure, the calorie burn is higher in the high intensity. There's a slightly more elevated afterburn. But if you're looking at total calories burned, you come out way ahead with the lower intensity, longer duration. So, as far as which is better or worse, they both have pros and cons to it. And from a training point of view, you'd want to incorporate both. Like, in the endurance world, a lot of times people will incorporate what's known as polarized training, which means that about 80% of your workouts are going to be done at quote unquote low intensity efforts. About 20% are going to be done at high intensity efforts, i.e. like the HIIT style training. And the reason for that is because you want to build that foundation, build that base of fitness, because the bigger your base, the higher you're going to be able to build that peak at the top. So lay that foundation of base fitness first, and then focus on building the peak. And it's also more sustainable, something that you can do consistently, because if you're always doing high intensity cardio, like running sprints and doing intervals and stuff like that, that takes a lot of recovery. It places a lot of stress and demands on the body, and it's going to take away from your recovery from strength training workouts. It's going to take away from recovery for the other types of activities you're doing. So you want to use it, but use it sparingly, right? So it's not something that you can just go out and hammer like an hour of high intensity cardio every day, plus do an hour of weight training every day, and like, it's not like you got endless recovery abilities. You only have like visualize like you have 100 units of recovery. It's not like I got 100 units for cardio and 100 units for strength training and 100 units for sports and athletics. Like, you got 100 units total. How do you divvy that up within your whole fitness routine to be the most efficient and prioritize what's important to you? So again, there's a lot to unpack, and that's what you'll find with a lot of these type of questions is once you scrape off the initial surface level answer, it goes much deeper. And I would much rather go deeper than just give you the generic, oh, this is good, that's bad answer, and then leave it at that. But anyway, hopefully that makes sense. I know that was a big one, but hopefully it makes sense. Let's see, what else we got there? You said before about putting your best body parts on the back burner to bring up your lagging areas. But I was thinking about concentrating on the muscles that respond to best to see how far I could take them. All right. You can do that if you want. I mean, like, you can do whatever the hell you want in the world as far as like gym workouts and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with it. But from a bodybuilding point of view, like this is especially true for people who are thinking of like, hey, someday I'd probably like to do a bodybuilding or physique competition. Having your body in balance and proportion is going to be very advantageous. And when you look at the top level bodybuilders and physique competitors, they generally have well balanced proportion physiques. Like, they're not just going to have massive arms and skinny legs, or they're not going to just like have a massive chest and no back, or imbalances like that. They usually want to have everything in balance and proportion. And if you don't have things in balance and proportion, I mean, sometimes you can look freaky, and I mean, you might enjoy that. Like have our forearms like Popeye, for example. Okay, I'm skinny as a rake everywhere, but I got these massive muscular forearms. All right, from a freak of nature point of view, that might look cool. Or again, like looking at a real world bodybuilding example, like Tom Platz. Like, obviously he was genetically gifted for massive legs. I mean, he had, back in the day, his legs were the best in the world at the time when he was competing in his heyday. I mean, nobody could touch him when it came to leg development. But he still pushed legs to their ultimate limit. I mean, he was the guy doing the high rep squats and stuff like that and just pushing it. I mean, he certainly became a freak of nature, and I mean, it was cool and kind of built a reputation for himself. But like, he never won the Mr. Olympia or like placed at the top because his body wasn't in balance and proportion, right? So I mean, that imbalance, you mean having these massive legs and in proportion an underdeveloped upper body. Now, I take that in perspective. I mean, from pro bodybuilder standards, I mean, like by normal people standards, even his upper body was phenomenal. But compared to his legs, which were, the best in the world, like his upper body was mediocre in the world of professional bodybuilding at the time. So mediocre upper body, best in the world legs, you're still going to be judged based on that mediocre upper body. Where someone who probably didn't have the leg development, but had more balance and proportion all around, placed higher. And that's what you would see in the bodybuilding world. So it depends what your goal is. If you just want to take your strongest body parts and see how strong you can make them or how big you can make them, and you don't care about balance or proportion, I mean, heck, go for it, right? It's up to you. It's your body. Like, there's not right or wrong here. It's just general guidelines of what people tend to focus on. But if you want to go against the grain and do something totally different, then hey, you're more than welcome to give it a try and see how it goes. What else we got there? We have Vors Ilinix, I think. I can't see your name very good. Anyway, the question is, Lee, just curious, I'm trying to reduce my workout time by doing full body, one top set per exercise, then drop sets after instead of 3 sets. Is this a good way for hypertrophy long term? All right, let me read that again. I'm trying to reduce my workout time by doing full body, one top set per exercise, then drop sets after instead of 3 sets. Is this a good... You know what? first off, like total body workouts, I am a big fan of total body workouts from a time efficiency point of view, right? And you mentioned you're trying to reduce the workout time. The thing I like about it is even if you're only getting in a couple workouts a week and you're doing total body, well, at least you're still hitting all your major muscle groups twice a week. So you can still certainly make progress. Versus if you're doing like a split routine and you're only hitting the gym a couple times a week, I mean, it could take you a month to hit all your major muscle groups. So from that point of view, it's more efficient to hit total body. And that's why I personally like to do it, just from the efficiency point of view. As far as the sets, if you push yourself with one set, you can still make progress. I mean, it's probably not going to be optimal, but it's still good enough, right? And you got to look at it from the big picture perspective. I mean, something's better than nothing. You could still make progress that way. The only thing I would be cautious about here when trying to reduce your workout time, don't skimp on the warm-up for the sake of cutting out time. Like thinking, hey, I'm just going to jump into one heavy set and then do some drop sets. Those progressively heavier sets are actually very advantageous because they help to prevent injury, and they also help to get you in the groove of the exercise so that you can give it your all when you're doing your top heavy set. So I'll just share an example. Like when I do a workout, my first set is just a light warm-up set, probably 50% of my working weight, right? So just to give you an example, like if my top working weight for an exercise is 100 pounds, my first warm-up set, I'll probably use 50 pounds. And then I'll do another progressively heavier warm-up set, probably 75% of my working weight. So again, if it's 100-pound working weight, 75 pounds. And then I'll jump to my top working weight, 100%. And then that will be my working set, if you will. And depending on how I'm feeling, I might do 2 or 3 working sets. But if you're pressed for time and you only want to do one working set, and then to kind of get some extra intensity, like you hit momentary muscular failure with that working set, and then you do a couple drop sets, that's still fine. I mean, you're still stimulating the muscle. And that's the main thing. As long as you're stimulating the muscle and you're doing so consistently, you can still make it work. So what you're doing is fine. Like, it can certainly work. The only thing I'm going to caution you on is don't cut out the warm-up as part of trying to save time with your workouts. Right? I know that the warm-up sets add some extra time, but it's time well invested. Because if you don't do those warm-up sets and you just rush right into your heavy working weight and you get injured, that's going to set you back big time. You ain't saving nothing, right? Because you're going to be laid up with injuries, and it could take you weeks or months or who knows how long to get back on track again. So it's not worth the risk skipping those warm-up sets. So right, if you have to skip anything, like if you have any sort of cool down ritual that you do or whatever, if you're really pressed for time, you could skip the cool down, but never skip the warm-up, right? And ideally, the best scenario is to do a proper warm-up, do your workout, and then probably do a cool down. And for me, my cool down is always, I do some post-workout stretching for the muscles that I just trained, because I find that helps to improve my flexibility, mobility. It eases up stiffness and soreness, so I don't feel as tight or stiff after the workout. So that's my personal routine. Warm up, do the workout itself, and then I always do some post-workout stretching afterwards. All right, who else we got joining in? We have Ronald joining us, and he says, is it possible that I am not made to do less than 10 reps per set for any exercise? I can't raise the weight to get to 5 to 8 reps without getting injured over time. That's a good question. All right, everyone's going to have their sweet spot in terms of their ideal rep range. And one thing I want you to think of here as well is some exercises work better for lower reps. Some exercises work better for higher reps. It's not always universal across the board. Like, I'll give you a prime example. Think of like deadlifts and abdominal crunches. Like, you could probably do a 5x5 deadlift workout, and that would be very effective. Nobody's going to do like 5x5 ab crunches, right? Like, you typically do ab crunches for higher volume of repetitions, more time under tension. And this applies with all your muscle groups. Like, you're going to find the sweet spot for that individual muscle group or that individual exercise. It's not always universal across the board, right? But everyone will have their own sweet spot. Some people like higher reps. They're more of the pumpers, if you will. Other people like lower reps. They're more, power oriented, strength and power, and then everything in between, right? So yeah, I mean, it is possible that you're more geared towards a higher rep workout. Like that's just what your body seems to respond to. But with that being said, it doesn't mean you can't incorporate some lower rep training. And the whole idea of getting injured when you go heavier and you lower the reps, it's probably because you're pushing yourself too much for that range, that rep range. Like you don't have to literally train to failure with every single set, even if it's a low rep set. It's okay to leave reps in reserve. And that's one of the great strategies for minimizing injury, especially when you're doing lower reps and heavier weight. Because as the weight gets heavier, and if you're pushing yourself to failure, the risk of injury goes up exponentially. And to kind of put this in perspective, you can even do this as like a homework assignment for yourself. Like go watch some training videos of like powerlifters or even Olympic weightlifters. Like this is a good one too. Like there's a lot of YouTube channels showing like Olympic weightlifting workouts. And just watch how they train. They do low reps, but they're not repping out to failure like typical bodybuilder style training. Like even though they're doing low reps, like they're not grinding out that last rep where they're struggling and they need to get a spotter and all this. Very often they bang out those reps. They're fast, they're explosive, they're with perfect technique, and they're stopping that set well short of failure. Like generally speaking, the only time you will see a powerlifter or a weightlifter hit failure is if they are maxing out and they miss a lift. But they don't take like a sub-maximal weight and grind it out to failure like the typical bodybuilding workouts. So stopping short of failure and leaving some reps in reserve, especially when you go heavier, that's going to make a big difference. So prime example, like take a weight that would probably be a rep to failure weight at 8 reps, but stop at 5 and just do multiple sets of 5 reps with that weight, stopping short of failure, leaving reps in reserve. And that's going to greatly reduce your risk of injury. But at the same time, it's going to allow you to train at a heavier weight, thus recruiting more motor units, more muscle fiber, placing that extra stress and demands on the joints, tendons, and ligaments, but not so much that you're going to get injured. So this idea of multiple sets, lower reps, stopping short of failure is a great way to incorporate lower rep training without getting injured. And if you want to really learn more about this, you can start searching and looking up like powerlifting workouts, weightlifting workouts, and just seeing the differences. Because a lot of us are kind of like in this bodybuilding bubble of, I got to train to failure. And like, if I don't grind out that last rep to failure and then do 4 reps on top of it or whatever, like, oh, I'm not training hard enough. Whereas the majority of the strength training world outside of the bodybuilding bubble, they're not training to failure, right? Because failure is the point where the body is you're titter-tottering on injury, right? Very often in the strength world especially, they want to do multiple sets, low reps, stopping short of failure, so that they can train more consistently, train more frequently, and get that volume in and build the skill of strength and not just grinding themselves to a pulp, right? It's a different mindset and it's a different strategy, but you'll find if you incorporate it, it can certainly help to produce some new strength gains. But yeah, I mean, that's a loaded question for sure, but some people are genetically gifted for different modalities. Like some people are naturally more endurance focused, some people are more power focused, and then everything in between, right? All right, let's see what we got there. A bunch of different people saying, hello, how's life going? Things are going well, thank you much. Appreciate it. How's your transition process going now? I'm not sure what you mean by that, but thanks. It's going well, I guess. What transition are we referring to? Who else we got there? Another question. Okay. I always like Lee's advice. I says, I have bad knees, and with his advice, I skipped doing squats and focus more on leg press. Now I can do 5 plates for leg press, and it feels good on my knees. Thanks, Lee. I appreciate you for sharing that. And that really drives home a point. Like, not every exercise is built for everybody. Like, I mean, I personally like doing squats, and it is a love-hate relationship. I mean, it's one of my favorite exercises in terms of it does produce results, but if it just doesn't work for you, or you find that it causes pain, discomfort, whatever, it's probably not the best exercise, or at least not the best exercise at this stage of the game. So focus on working the muscle, not getting hung up on the exercise. And that can apply for anything. Like, maybe, you want to do the bench press, but for some reason it just kills your shoulders or kills your elbows or just doesn't feel right. You don't have to bench press. Like, we're so fortunate in most gyms these days that we have oodles of different machines, that you're probably going to find something that will allow you to work that muscle, train it in a progressive overload fashion, and do so comfortably without risking injury or causing pain and discomfort. And of course, the older you get, the more likely it is that your joints, tendons, and ligaments need a bit more TLC and are not going to handle the use and abuse that they once did, right? So if you need to swap exercises or switch to some more joint-friendly variations, like you mentioned, swapping out squats and doing leg presses instead, hey, do it. I mean, if it works, you can still make great progress. I mean, there's been a lot of top-level bodybuilders who've never squatted, or don't currently squat, and they focus on leg machines as their primary leg training. Leg presses and pendulum squat machines, or leg extensions, leg curls, that kind of stuff. I know several people personally who I've competed with over the years, like, they've never squatted but still had incredible leg development. Who else we got joining in? You're not in your office. No, I'm not. I mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again for anybody who's just popping onto the live stream. My son Harvey is in music lessons right now, so I'm outside the music school. I'm sitting in the car doing the live stream, and the reason for that is normally he has his music lessons on Monday, but Monday was Thanksgiving, a holiday here in Canada, so he didn't have his music lessons on Monday. So they postponed it till today, and instead of skipping the live video Q&A today, I said, you know what? I'm just going to drop Harvey off at his music lessons, and I'm going to sit in the car and I'll do the live stream on my phone. So that's what we're doing. That's why I'm not in the office. All right, what else we got there? Ronald saying, thanks so much for your detailed answer. Greetings from Austria. Well, you're welcome, my friend. Glad to help, and glad you found the in-depth explanation helpful. I know some people like going deep and unpacking things and covering different pros and cons. Some people are just like, oh, shut up with the ramble, just tell me yes or no and give me an answer so I can move on. And unfortunately, it's usually not as simple as that, right? I don't like these little one-liner yes-no answers. I try to give people information so they can decide what's the best solution for them and their situation. Robert saying, word up, that's dedication. Thanks for what you do. Appreciate it. Yeah, I enjoy it. All right, getting some people saying hi. Is there any other questions coming through? I think that's all that came through on my end here. For those of you tuning in right now, I mean, if this is your first time joining into a live stream Q&A, welcome. And the way this works is I'm hanging out here answering your topics and questions through the Total Fitness Bodybuilding live stream. So if there's anything that you would like to discuss related to fitness, nutrition, your workouts, any specific challenges you're dealing with, feel free to type those questions and topics of discussion into our chat window, and I'll do the best I can to help you out over the course of our chat. And I'm going to be hanging out here for another 9 minutes. I'm counting it down, right? 9 minutes, or not 9 minutes. It's 11 minutes. There we go. I'm doing my math wrong here. 11 minutes left. All right, so however many questions we can bang out in the next 11 minutes. Let's go. And I'm just going to scroll back here, make sure I didn't miss anything. I think it's coming through. All right. And if you are enjoying this video chat and getting some value from it, I would appreciate it if you could give it a thumbs up. Share it with your fitness friends. If you know anybody who'd benefit from the Total Fitness Bodybuilding live stream Q&A, feel free to share it with them. And another thing I want to mention as well is the Total Fitness Bodybuilding podcast. We launched a new episode recently covering the 3 pillars of fitness success, and this one really dives into, I guess, more of the inner game side of fitness and nutrition, and it's something that I would highly recommend you check out, especially if you're more advanced with your workouts and you're beyond the initial beginner phase of just eat right and exercise, and you're looking to kind of take things to the next level. I would highly recommend checking out the most recent episode of the Total Fitness Bodybuilding podcast. And that is up on the YouTube channel. Just right in the top menu bar of the YouTube channel, there's a link there for podcasts. You can scroll down and see all the past episodes. It's also available on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, and most of the major podcast platforms. Just do a search for Lee Hayward's Total Fitness Bodybuilding Podcast, and it should pop up in whatever platform you prefer listening to podcasts through. But I would recommend checking out on YouTube because I do put visuals, videos, and pictures and charts and things like that. Usually I go up along with the podcast. So I know some people like to listen to it while they're driving or stuff like that, but if you can, watch it through YouTube because you'll be able to take advantage of the visuals as well. All right, what else we got there? Let's just see. Second, now a couple questions came through there. Watching live from Africa, what is the best rep range for building muscle and sets? All right, building muscle. I kind of touched on this with one of the earlier questions. It depends on the exercise because not all exercises work the best. And I give you the example of big, heavy, compound power moves like your squats, your bench presses, your deadlifts, overhead presses. Those type of exercises tend to respond well with heavier, lower reps. So like you could do like a 5x5 program for like squats or deadlifts or bench presses. That usually works really well for those type of exercises. As you're getting into more of the mid-range compound exercises, such as like rows, leg presses, shoulder presses, different things like that, dumbbell bench presses, they tend to work in more of a mid-range, probably like in the 8 to 10 rep range. And then when you're getting into more isolation exercises like side lateral raises, calf raises, abdominal work, leg extensions, leg curls, they tend to work better in a higher rep range, probably like in the 10 to 12 or even higher. So it depends on the exercise. Now, again, these are just general guidelines. I'm not saying that you can't do higher reps for squats or benches, or you can't do lower reps for, some isolation work. But generally speaking, that's kind of the way it is for most people. The bigger the exercise, the better it's probably going to respond to lower reps. And the mid-range exercise tend to respond to mid-range reps. And then the isolation stuff tend to respond better to higher reps. That's kind of like a general guideline. And I made a blog post and a video about this several years ago. In fact, if you go to leehayward.com and do a search for, I think it's how many reps to build muscle. If you just did a search like on Google or whatever, like Lee Hayward, how many reps to build muscle, it should pop up there. Like it's a blog post up on my website where I break down all the different exercises and the ideal rep ranges that you could use for those exercises. But that would be a good general place to start. But as you become more advanced, like you're going to learn your own natural rhythm and your own preference. Like some people prefer heavy power training. Others prefer higher rep pumping training. And then some are kind of like somewhere in the middle. In my case, I'm generally somewhere in the middle. Like my sweet spot for most exercises is in that 10 rep range. If I'm doing less than 10 reps, then that's considered low reps by my standards. And if I'm doing more than 10 reps, then that's high reps by my standards. But generally, I'm in that 10 rep range. That's just where I kind of like feel my sweet spot for most exercises. And that's something like as you build more experience and more mind-muscle connection and understand how your body responds, you'll find your own individual sweet spot for your exercises as well. But again, that's just kind of like a general guideline, and you can use that to start from and then modify it based on how your body responds in real time. What's your thought on D3 K2 supplements? I think it's great. In fact, the vitamin D3 with the K2 helps to enhance the absorption. That's the whole idea of it. A lot of, like back in the day, it was just vitamin D3. That was basically the only form of D3 that was available. But they've, through research and studies and everything else, they found out that it enhances the absorption if you add K2 along with it. And K2 is a fat soluble vitamin. It's one that hasn't really gotten a lot of attention until recently, and it's usually paired up with the vitamin D3 just to help enhance the absorption. So I personally use that myself. That's part of my supplement routine. And since I've been able to get the D3 K2 combo, I've been switched over. So that's what I use instead of just the regular D3. I'm not saying that the regular D3 is not effective, but if you want to maximize the absorption and get the best benefits, then you're probably better off getting the D3K2 combo just to help maximize the absorption. Okay, thanks. Always enjoy the info. That's from Robert. Appreciate it, Robert. And Robert's a regular to these chats. Very rare does a Friday Q&A come along where I don't see Robert joining in. So again, I appreciate the support, and kudos to you for the consistency. All right, another question here. What meal plan would you recommend for losing the belly? All right, I tell you what, I actually have a sample meal plan that you can go check out. I mean, first off, if you do a search on my YouTube channel for Lee Hayward Full Day of Eating, you'll see some sample eating plans that are eating plans that I've personally used in fat loss phases, and you'll see a full detail of the foods, the calories, the macro breakdown, and everything else. If you just do a search for Lee Hayward Full Day of Eating. If you also head on over to my website, leehayward.com, and scroll down, you'll see a link there where you can download a copy of my Bodybuilding Nutrition Made Simple PDF. It's a PDF download that outlines the fundamentals of bodybuilding nutrition and the ideal foods that you should be eating to maximize fat loss as well as lean muscle growth. And again, that's a free download that you can pick up over at leehayward.com. So I would recommend checking that out, and that will give you some good recommendations. All right, who else we got joining in? Hey, brother, hope you are doing well. Everyone, check out the podcast for sure. Cheers from Boston. I appreciate it. That's from Michael. Much appreciated. And thanks for the help, Lee. You're welcome. And again, thank you for the support in the comments. Another question coming through. Hope all is well. Do you follow a high or low volume routine? I guess from a strength training point of view, at this stage of the game, it would be considered low volume, because my training evolves as my goals and priorities evolve. So when I was competing in bodybuilding, it was, I guess it's high volume by a lot of people's standards, but not high volume by the old school pumping iron standards. Like, if you've ever watched Pumping Iron or heard like interviews from Arnold and stuff saying, hey, we work out 4 or 5 hours a day, blah, 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 right? Twice a day. I never did that, but I did train pretty much like back in my bodybuilding days, like 6 days a week. Each workout would take upwards of 2 hours a day in the gym. So by today's standards, I guess that would be a high volume workout. That's what I typically did when I was bodybuilding. Now I've switched gears where I'm not competing in bodybuilding anymore. I'm primarily focused on cycling and cycling training and doing local races. So my weight training is more of a low volume, but the cycling, again, by most people's standards, would be considered high volume. Now, compared to professional endurance athletes, it's probably still considered on the low volume side, but I typically average about 2 workouts a week in the gym right now. Workouts last anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes. So generally speaking, like I'm doing weightlifting for about 3 hours a week, right? That's on average what I'll do right now. But I'm spending about 10 hours a week on the bike. So that's my training split now. It's more endurance focused because that's the main goal. And basically the strength training is just to kind of balance out what I don't hit through cycling training, and to help minimize injuries and stuff like that. So that's my main focus there. But I'm at a different stage of the game. Like if you're primarily interested in bodybuilding training, obviously you probably want to focus more on the gym and the weight training aspect. For me at this stage, I'm personally doing more endurance training because that's what I'm doing. I've competed in several cycling races this year, and just a few weeks ago, I won my division, which was the weekend warrior category at our Newfoundland Provincials Road Cycling Championship. So I was happy with that, to be able to finish off the season with a win. First win that I got this season, so I was quite happy with that one. But that's the way my training is. So it's 10 hours a week on the bike, but 3 hours a week in the gym lifting weights. That's usually how I split it up. And as far as, is that high or low volume, it really depends on who you're asking, right? I mean, compared to someone who doesn't work out, it's all high volume because it's more than what they're doing. But compared to like elite level athletes, it's probably peanuts. I mean, the idea of doing 3 hours of weight training compared to like what a pro bodybuilder does, that's nothing. 10 hours of cycling compared to what like a pro cyclist does, that's nothing. So I guess what's high or low all depends on your perspective and who you're talking to. But again, I just share what I'm personally doing. What else we got there? Let's see. We have... let's see what we got here. Now, just a second, guys. All right. We have people just talking about the K2D3. Yeah, it does certainly help speed up the absorption. Ronan is saying K2 is in protein shakes and other stuff too. It might very well be. I've never, it's not in an ingredient in the protein shakes that I've take personally, but I mean, it might be if they're kind of combining like some sort of meal replacement or including vitamin D3 and K2 and things like that. I mean, it may very well be, but I just know the one that I have right now, there's no K2 in my protein shake, but that doesn't mean it's not in some of them. What else we got there? Just a second. And awesome, congrats. Thanks for your response as well. Subscribed. I appreciate that. Yeah. And if you haven't already done so, you can certainly subscribe to the Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel so you can stay up to date with all my latest videos, short reels, as well as the podcast. That would certainly help. Be much appreciated. And with that being said, we're actually just past the hour here now, so I'm going to get ready and clue this up because my son Harvey is going to be finished up his music lesson very shortly, and he's going to be wondering where the heck is Dad. So I'm going to head on in now and pick him up. So he's over there at the School of Rock, and it is getting late here. As you can tell, it's already pitch black, right? Thanks to the fall weather coming along and the shorter days. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I know this was a bit of a deviation from our regular live stream Q&A. Right? Normally I do these in my home office on my computer with good lighting. But today we're making the best of the situation, sitting in the car, streaming on my phone. So hopefully you got some value from it nonetheless. And if you have any questions or anything that you would like to follow up on based on what we talked about here today, feel free to reach out to me. If you want to drop me an email or you want to follow me over on Facebook or Instagram or whatever and drop me a private message through there, you can certainly do so as well. And I'd be more than happy to have a chat with you and elaborate on anything that we discussed during our conversation here today. And in the meantime, have yourself a fantastic weekend, and I will talk to you next week on the Live at 5 video Q&A here on the Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel. So take care, over and out. And now I got to figure out how to turn this off because this is different than my computer. All right. There.